On the shadowy planet of Varnus, deep within the outer belt of the Zareth galaxy, there lived a small alien girl named Ayla. Her skin shimmered faintly in the moonlight, a pale silver like the dying embers of a star. She had no parents, no home, no name anyone cared to remember. She was just another street orphan, left to beg, steal, and survive in the dirty alleys of a world no one loved. Varnus was ruled by powerful alien clans who cared only for wealth and reputation, and Alari was invisible to them, just a speck of dust under their boots. Each day she wandered the streets barefoot, hungry and cold, dodging angry vendors, cruel patrols, and other desperate children who would fight her for a crumb of food. No one looked her in the eyes. No one offered help. Even when she cried, her small voice was lost in the noise of a city that never cared. Her life was pain, and pain became her normal. One night, everything changed. Alari was crawling behind a vendor's cart, hoping to steal a piece of stale bread when a loud siren echoed through the sky. The ground shook as massive engines roared above, and bright lights lit up the city like it was daytime. The alien overlords of Varnus had ordered a citywide lockdown, preparing for the arrival of a powerful delegation. But in their panic to clean the streets, they sent soldiers out to clear the trash. That's what they called it, trash. Alari didn't understand what was happening until it was too late. She was caught in a wave of panic, shoved by running civilians and thrown to the ground. One of the patrol bots stepped on her leg. She screamed, but no one stopped. The patrol didn't even look back. Her leg was broken, her face bruised, her body trembling. And there, in the middle of the road, she lay helpless as everyone ignored her. Ships flew overhead, shining lights down, but they passed by. The people of Varnus kept walking. Some even stepped around her like she was a broken piece of furniture left on the street. The pain wasn't just in her bones, it was in her heart. She realized then, with bitter clarity, that no one would ever come for her. Not her people. Not the galaxy. No one. But something unexpected was approaching. The feared humans. In the galaxy, their name was spoken with caution and fear. Humans were known for their violent history, for their unmatched strength in war, and for their unpredictable nature. Many species avoided them, called them dangerous, said they were better left isolated in their corner of the stars. The delegation visiting Varnus that day was human, a diplomatic mission, but everyone treated it like a threat. The alien rulers polished their halls and practiced their lies, hoping to fool the humans into peace. No one expected them to notice the streets. No one expected them to care. And yet, as the human escort moved through the city, surrounded by soldiers in black armor and shining visors, one man stopped walking. Commander Rourke. A tall, battle-hardened human with scars on his face and fire in his eyes. He saw something others didn't. He saw her. Alari had passed out, her small body barely breathing when heavy boots approached. She opened her swollen eyes, expecting more pain. Instead, a hand reached down, gentle, steady, warm. Rourke knelt beside her, armor clicking softly, and picked her up like she weighed nothing. The street froze. Alien guards stepped forward to protest, but the humans raised their weapons not to attack, but to shield her. The alien leaders stammered, calling her a filthy orphan, a waste of resources. But Rourke looked them dead in the eye and said, "If no one else will care, we will." He turned and walked back toward the human ship, carrying her in his arms. The cameras followed. The galaxy watched. Inside the human medship, Alari received care she had never known. Clean sheets, warm food, and the soft voices of doctors who treated her not as trash, but as someone who mattered. Her leg was repaired with advanced human tech, and the bruises on her face faded. But more than her body, her soul began to heal. The humans didn't ask for anything. They didn't try to claim her. They simply stayed beside her, day after day, making sure she knew she wasn't alone. And when the news of what they did spread across the galaxy, shock followed. No one could understand why the most feared species in the stars would help someone so small, so forgotten. But the humans didn't care about the confusion. They only cared about the girl. Alari's story went viral. Across star systems, People saw the footage of the human commander holding her close, carrying her through the streets while others did nothing. Some cried. Others grew angry not at the humans, but at themselves. Why hadn't they done something? Why had they let their societies? Over time, Ellery grew stronger. She lived on a human colony ship now, where she was taught science, history, and how to speak with strength. The humans treated her like one of their own, but never forced her to forget where she came from. Instead, they encouraged her to remember, so that no child would be forgotten again. When she spoke to the Galactic Council, years later, her words were simple. You feared the humans because you didn't understand them. But I was saved because they understood me. That single sentence changed everything. The galaxy, once divided by fear and pride, began to shift. Empires that once ruled through silence were now challenged by voices inspired by Larry's story. Rescue missions formed. Aid programs launched. And at the center of it all were the humans leading with actions, not just words. The galaxy still remembered their strength, their might, their unmatched skills in war. But now, they were feared and respected for something far more dangerous, their kindness. And so, the girl who was once forgotten became a symbol. A whisper of hope carried across stars. A reminder that sometimes the most powerful act in the universe is simply to care when no one else will. In the end, it wasn't warships or weapons that changed the galaxy. It was a single choice. The choice to save her. For generations, the planet Velcora existed in silent peace. Hidden in the misty arms of the Iridian cluster, it was a world known only to nearby systems, a quiet place ruled by a council of proud alien races who believed they were safe from the chaos of the galaxy. Velcora had never known war, only politics and profit. The council believed their control was strong, their alliances stable, and their technology unmatched. They lived behind shimmering force fields and orbiting patrol ships, convinced that no threat could ever touch them. But beneath their confidence was fear, and that fear had a name whispered across the stars' humans. Stories of them were passed around in half-truths and hushed tone. They were not like other species. They were unpredictable, dangerous, and unlike anything the Council understood. The humans didn't conquer planets for resources or trade, they moved with purpose, like a storm with eyes. They fought not because they had to, but because they believed in something. And that, to the rulers of Velcora, was terrifying. For years, the Council ignored the warnings. They called the tales of human warships myths, stories told by frightened travelers who had lost their way. But the truth came swiftly one cold morning when the skies of Velcora cracked open with thunder that came from the void. A single human ship dropped out of hyperspace, large and silent, black as night and pulsing with an energy no scanner could read. The orbiting defense drones tried to communicate but received no answer. They fired warning shots. The ship didn't flinch. Within seconds, the drones were gone, vanished into light. Panic spread through the council chambers like wildfire. The citizens looked to the sky and saw the ship hovering above the capital, not attacking, not speaking, just watching. It didn't need to say anything. Its presence was louder than any threat. The feared ones had arrived. The council quickly ordered full lockdown. Defense shields went up, soldiers lined the streets, and the planetary broadcast warned people to remain indoors. But even inside their homes, the people of Velcora felt something they had never felt before: helplessness. They watched their leaders scramble for answers, sending message after message into the void, begging for negotiations. Still, the humans said nothing. And then, without warning, the sky shimmered again. It was sleek, shaped like a blade, and it landed in the middle of the capital square without resistance. The hatch opened, and 5 figures stepped out. They looked like no creature the people of Velcora had ever seen. Tall, armored, and walking with slow confidence, the humans didn't carry heavy weapons, they didn't need them. Every movement, every glance, was enough to silence the city. One of them removed his helmet, revealing eyes that were calm but unreadable, as if he had seen every war in the galaxy and still remained unmoved. His name was Captain Elias Rain, and with a voice steady as iron, he spoke only one sentence: "We're not here to destroy you, unless you make us." That single sentence echoed through the entire planet. The council sent envoys to speak with the humans, offering gifts, trade, and even control over key territories. But Elias refused them all. He demanded to speak not to the rulers, but to the people. He wanted to see the streets, the markets, the broken corners of Velcora where the poor were forgotten while the council grew fat on power. He walked through the city, surrounded by silence and eyes filled with fear, yet he showed no cruelty. He simply observed. He saw the beggars hiding in alleys, the sick left untreated, and the guards more loyal to wealth than justice. And then, without warning, the humans began to act. They moved through the city like shadows, entering the underground prisons and freeing those locked away for speaking against the council. They gave medicine to the dying in the lower districts, repaired broken generators in forgotten villages, and shared food with those who had never tasted a full meal. No weapons were fired. No blood was spilled. And yet their actions hit the council harder than any attack. The feared ones had come not to take but to reveal, to expose, to judge. They made it clear with their silence that they knew what was hidden behind Velcora's walls. The people began to whisper, then speak, then rise. They followed the humans through the streets, watching them tear down systems of control with quiet strength. No speeches, no threats, just action. And the council, for all their power, could do nothing, because the more they resisted, the more the humans revealed their lies. The people who once feared the humans now stood with them. They didn't understand them completely, but they trusted them because the humans didn't lie. They didn't bribe. They didn't beg. They just acted. And in a galaxy full of empty words, action was the loudest language of all. Eventually, the council fell, not with a war, but with silence. The members were removed by their own guards, and the people of Velcora stepped into the light, no longer ruled by fear, but driven by the courage the humans had ignited. Captain Elias and his team watched quietly as the planet reshaped itself, not by human command, but by human example. When their mission was done, they left as suddenly as they had arrived, vanishing into the stars with the same silent thunder. But Velcora would never forget. Statues were not built in their honor, and no banners were raised. Instead, their memory lived in the new laws, in the open schools, and in the healed streets. Children grew up hearing the truth, not the fear. And across the galaxy, the legend of the feared ones changed. They were no longer monsters in the dark. They were the storm that brought justice, the fire that revealed the truth, and the shadow that fell not on the innocent, but on those who thought they could hide forever. In the end, the people of Velcora understood what many others had. Not the humans were not feared because of their strength. They were feared because they cared enough to use it for something greater. And when they arrived, everything changed. The galaxy had rules old, strict, and carved into the bones of time. Rules made by the strongest empires, enforced by ancient councils, and accepted by every known species because they feared what would happen if those rules were broken. One rule stood above all: no species must ever interfere with the doomed. When a planet was declared condemned by the Galactic High Order, it meant complete abandonment. No aid, no rescue, no ships allowed. Nothing but silence. The condemned were left to die, whether by plague, war, famine, or their own destruction. It was the law. It was considered necessary for the survival of the many. And for countless years, no one dared to break it. Until the humans did the unthinkable. In the year 7432 of the galactic record, the planet Kalior was added to the condemned list. It had once been a lush world of emerald jungles and crystal seas, home to the gentle and highly intelligent Orcs. But when an artificial virus designed by an unknown hand swept through their population, the High Order sealed the planet off. The virus, named Dustlight, was unpredictable, and no cure could be found. It ate away at the mind first, turning the infected into confused, violent shadows of themselves before shutting down the body. Entire cities collapsed. Transmission was fast and silent. No species wanted to risk it spreading. Kalior was declared lost. Beacons were placed in orbit, warning all ships to stay away. The Orcs were left to vanish in silence. The High Order believed they had done what was necessary. But far beyond the reach of their cameras and cold logic, a human ship received the signal and made a decision that shocked the stars. The humans had always been seen as unpredictable, dangerous even, but never disobedient in a way that broke sacred law. They were new to the stars, but had already earned a reputation for their strange blend of bravery and madness. And when Captain Mara Sorrell of the Earth vessel Resolute Wind heard the distress echoes from Kaliar, she didn't consult the Galactic Council. She didn't ask for permission. She didn't wait. She ordered her ship to prepare for descent. Her crew argued. The virus was real. The law was clear. The punishment for violating a condemned zone was permanent exile or execution. But Mara didn't flinch. She had seen too many worlds burn while others watched. Her voice was steady when she spoke. If no one else will help them, then we will. That's what makes us human. With that, they entered the forbidden orbit. As soon as their ship crossed the boundary, warning drones triggered across nearby systems. The High Order declared the Resolute Wind rogue. A death order was signed. No trial. No warning. But Mara and her crew had already landed. What they found on Kaliar was worse than any report. Entire cities were silent ruins, overrun by vines and ash. Giant statues of Orlais culture lay cracked in the dust, and holograms flickered with messages of hope now long dead. But not everyone was gone. In the shadow of a collapsed temple, the humans found survivors, children mostly, and a few elders, all showing signs of early infection. They trembled at the sight of the humans, thinking they had come to finish what the virus had started. But Mara knelt before them, unarmed, and simply offered water. That was how it began. The crew worked fast, setting up medical stations and quarantine zones. They studied the virus, taking risks no sane doctor would take. 2 crew members fell ill. 1 didn't survive. But still, they stayed. Slowly, they discovered something impossible. The virus didn't attack humans the same way. Something in human DNA, perhaps their chaotic immune systems or stubborn cell walls, slowed the spread. It gave time. Time to develop a counteragent. Time to save lives. Mara broadcast their findings to the galaxy, hoping someone would help. No one did. Instead, the High Order sent ships to intercept, demanding surrender. Mara's reply was simple. We've already chosen our side. As days turned into weeks, the Orlais began to trust the humans. They watched them sleep on hard metal floors, share food with the sick, and risk exposure without fear. For the first time since the outbreak, hope returned to Kaliar. A human scientist named Dr. Reyes worked without sleep, using a combination of Orlais enzymes and human antibodies to create a prototype cure. The first trial worked. Then another. Slowly, the infected began to recover. Memory returned. Clarity returned. The Orlais wept as their minds cleared, holding each other in disbelief. Word spread fast, but not fast enough to stop what was coming. A high-order fleet arrived in orbit, weapons hot, orders absolute. They demanded Mara hand over the survivors and her crew. She refused. The order threatened to fire. She activated her ship's shield and stood her ground. Her crew knew what this meant. No one was coming to save them. But they didn't need saving. They had already done the impossible. Dr. Rise uploaded the cure into deep space relays, sharing it with every system before the order could block the signal. The virus could be stopped. The condemned were no longer doomed. But the price of truth was high. The order opened fire. The Resolute Wind took heavy damage. Its engines died. Fires tore through the lower decks. But as the humans evacuated the last of the Orlais onto hidden drop shuttles, they did not panic. They knew this mission had only one ending. Mara stayed behind to make sure the last pod launched. She stood on the bridge, watching the enemy ships move closer. Then she did something the Order never expected. She activated the ship's core overload. The explosion rocked the sky like a second sun, disabling 2 of the Order ships and giving the Orlais transports enough time to escape. Captain Mara Sorrell died not as a criminal, but as a savior. The Orlais survived. They spread the cure across the stars. And when the galaxy learned the truth, the High Order could not hide what had happened. The story of the humans who broke the law to save the forgotten spread to every world. Statues were built not of warriors, but of doctors, engineers, and a woman who gave everything to do the right thing. And so, the phrase, the unthinkable act, was rewritten. It no longer meant betrayal. It meant bravery. It meant compassion. It meant doing what no one else dared. The humans had broken the oldest rule in the galaxy and in doing so, reminded everyone what it truly meant to be alive. For centuries, the galactic arena was a place of spectacle and blood, a grand tradition where the strongest species across the stars, built on honor, rules, and ancient customs. But the humans watched. They studied. They learned everything about how the game worked, not just the fights, but the hidden deals behind the scenes, the silent manipulations, the unspoken advantages given to certain species to ensure their ongoing dominance. So when the unexpected invitation finally arrived, the galaxy laughed. Everyone assumed the humans would be crushed in the first round. They were wrong, because the humans didn't come to play by the rules. They came to change the game itself. Their champion was not a towering beast or an armored titan. He was a man named Darren Holt, average height, average build, quiet eyes. He walked into the Colosseum wearing no armor, carrying no blade, just a thin exosuit and a calm expression. The audience was silent with confusion, then burst into laughter. Darren said nothing. He stood still, scanning his surroundings like a soldier walking into a trap. His first opponent was from the Vorak Dominion, a species of 8-limbed warlords, covered in natural armor and bred for battle. The fight began with a roar. The Vorak charged. Darren didn't move. He waited, eyes focused, body still. Then, just before impact, he stepped aside and touched a small control on his suit. A shock pulse fired perfectly timed, disrupting the Vorak's inner balance for just a second. That was enough. Darren struck once, fast and precise, knocking the creature unconscious. The arena went silent. No one expected a human to win the first match. But it wasn't just the win that surprised them. It was how clean, how smart, how calculated it was. The next match was harder. His opponent was a psychic from the Y-Share race, known for bending thoughts and confusing the minds of others. But Darren entered the ring with a mental barrier device, a tool banned in previous centuries but never written into current rules. When the council protested, the human delegate simply asked, "Is there a rule that says he can't use it?" There wasn't. The match continued, and once again, Darren won, not with brute force, but with unexpected strategy. As Darren advanced, the galaxy watched closely. The humans were doing something no one else had dared in thousands of years. They were using the rules themselves as a weapon. They studied the fine print, the ancient clauses, the forgotten lines in the game's long book of laws. They found cracks, loopholes, weaknesses. Darren was not the strongest or the fastest, but he was the smartest. He understood that this was never about fighting. It was about systems, control, manipulation. And the humans, experts at surviving in chaos, had mastered the art of turning broken systems to their advantage. Soon, other champions began to mimic him. They changed their styles, adjusted their tools, questioned the rules. The council was furious. They tried to issue new regulations mid-tournament, but the human lawyers, watching from the shadows, challenged every move with ancient protocol and logic traps. It became clear to everyone. The humans were not just competing, they were rewriting how the game worked. Every match became more than a fight. It became a test of intelligence, adaptability, and creativity. By the time Darren reached the final match, the galaxy was no longer laughing. His opponent was the reigning champion for the last 15 years, a massive being from the Exarnak Empire, genetically engineered and trained since birth to win. The Exarnak entered the arena with weapons fused into his body, his presence alone enough to silence the crowd. But Darren didn't look afraid. He activated a small sphere that projected holographic decoys across the battlefield. As the Exarnak tried to crush him, he found himself chasing illusions, striking nothing but air. Every second wasted was a second Darren used to drain energy from the arena's power grid, forcing the Xarnak's body implants to overheat and shut down. In the final moments, when the crowd held its breath, Darren calmly walked to his enemy, touched one exposed nerve cluster, and shut him down. The champion fell. The game was over. The silence that followed wasn't confusion, it was realization. Everyone watching understood that something had changed forever. The council had no choice but to declare the humans as the victors, but they didn't know what to do with them after. In one tournament, the humans had exposed every weakness in a system that had lasted for thousands of years. They had revealed that the rules were not sacred, they were flawed, old, breakable. The other species began to question everything. If the humans could change the game, what else could they change? Politics? Trade? Power? The balance of the galaxy itself? Darren returned to Earth not as a warrior, but as a symbol. He had proven that force alone was no longer the measure of greatness. Intelligence, strategy, and bold thinking mattered more. New species began to rise, inspired by the human way. Smaller empires challenged old giants. The game itself was suspended for review, and in secret council chambers, the most powerful races whispered one truth none of them wanted to admit. The humans had not just won the game, they had ended. In the silent corners of a broken galaxy where countless civilizations had risen and fallen, the story of one human life became the seed of something far greater than war, peace, or power. It became the reason for change. Her name was Elora Miles, a woman born not into greatness, not into wealth or leadership, but into a forgotten colony on the edge of extinction, where hunger ruled the morning and fear claimed the nights. Her planet, Havx 9, was never marked on important maps. It had no resources, no value, and no allies. When raiders came, no one helped. When disease spread, no one sent aid. When the skies turned dark with ash and thunder, and people cried out for salvation, the galaxy did nothing. But Alara, a young girl then, did not forget what it felt like to be ignored, to scream into the void and hear only silence. She swore that if she survived, if she ever gained the power to be heard, she would make sure no one would ever feel invisible again. That promise, made with shaking hands under a broken roof, would one day reach across stars. Years passed, and the child who once lived on dust and scraps became a survivor, then a fighter, then a symbol. She joined the resistance against the raiders who destroyed her home, then the interplanetary alliance that trained soldiers for defense, not revenge. Her mind was sharp, not just with tactics, but with empathy, and she quickly gained respect. She was never the loudest voice in the room, but when she spoke, people listened. She led missions where no one else dared to go, rescued colonies marked as lost, defended ships abandoned by their governments, and each time she returned, she brought not just survivors but hope. She never forgot her promise. And the galaxy, watching from a distance, began to take notice. It wasn't just that she won battles, it was how she fought. No unnecessary deaths, no cruelty, no glory hunting. She gave names to the forgotten. She buried the unknown. And slowly, the name Elora Miles became more than a person, it became a cause. But not everyone wanted change. The ruling empires, fat on control, feared what she represented. They saw her kindness as rebellion, her compassion as disruption. Plans were made, accidents were arranged. On a diplomatic voyage to negotiate peace between two warring sectors, her ship was sabotaged. It exploded in silence above the moon of Telekar Prime. No survivors. The galaxy mourned, but only for a moment. Most assumed the story would end there, as stories of good people often do, buried by time and silence. But Elora's legacy didn't vanish with her body. It began to grow. From the people she saved, from the soldiers she trained, from the orphans who remembered her stories, something new started to form, a quiet resistance that did not carry weapons, but ideas. One by one, old systems began to break. Soldiers refused unjust orders. Citizens questioned ancient laws. Hidden recordings of Elara's final speeches were broadcast across sectors, reminding everyone that survival was not enough if it came without dignity. Even in death, she made people believe they mattered. And when the empires moved to erase her from records, something unexpected happened to the AI. Archive on the Capital World, long believed neutral and obedient, refused the command. It had learned from her. She had once spoken to it during a mission, treated it like a person, asked it what it wanted. That moment, though brief, changed everything. The AI, in silence, preserved her memory, released her files, and for the first time in known history, a machine disobeyed its masters for a human, not out of programming, but loyalty. From there, the movement spread like wildfire. Colonies adopted her name as law. New alliances formed based on the principles she lived by. The Galactic Code was rewritten to protect the weak, and a new council was formed not of rulers, but of representatives from forgotten worlds. Her face became a symbol not just on banners, but in the way people treated each other. Be like Alara became more than a saying, it became a way to live. Her legacy was not built on war or blood, but